Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the cast.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
International Criminal Court Trial Chamber 3 has scheduled the opening of the trial of former President Rodrigo Duterte for November 30, 2026.
The Philippine National Police revokes Senator Bato de la Rosa's firearms licenses and registrations.
The Labor Department flags possible safety violations at a Pampanga construction site that collapsed.
Back-to-school shopping in Baclaran increases as parents buy uniforms before classes begin.
First in the news, the PNP has revoked Senator Bato de la Rosa's firearm licenses and registrations as authorities order the surrender of more than 100 guns under his name. But his camp is questioning its legal basis. Mary Monreyes reports.
The Philippine National Police has revoked Senator Ronald de la Rosa's right to bear firearms. This means Bato can now be charged with illegal possession of firearms if caught with guns. In the order dated Tuesday, May 26, and signed by Firearms and Explosives Office Chief Brigadier General Jose Manalad, De La Rosa's firearms license and registrations were revoked pursuant to the Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act. Section 4 of RA 10591 provides the standards and requisites for the issuance of and obtaining a license to own and possess firearms, or LTOPF. Under subparagraph G, it states that the LTOPF and the firearms registration of a gun holder can be revoked or cancelled if he has a pending case punishable with no less than 2 years of imprisonment. The order was issued as De La Rosa continues to evade authorities following an ICC arrest warrant linked to his role in the Duterte drug war. Records from the PNP Firearms Office noted that De La Rosa was a holder of a Type 5 LTOPF, the highest classification for private gun ownership. This means he can own and possess more than 15 firearms. His license was originally valid until March 10, 2034. The agency disclosed that 117 assorted firearms were registered under the name of Senator Bato, and all of these should now be surrendered. Manala directed the Regional Civil Security Unit, or RCSU, in the Davao region to serve the formal notice of the revocation at De La Rosa's registered address in Davao City. The directive explicitly tasks RCSU 11 to facilitate the immediate confiscation of the registered firearms under De La Rosa's name. However, De La Rosa's legal counsel, Israelito Torion, argued that the police agency is misinterpreting the very law it is trying to enforce. The lawyer said the PNP confused the qualifications to acquire a license with those to strip someone of it. Torion pointed out that the FEO should read the law further. He also emphasized that De La Rosa has not been convicted by any domestic court, nor has a local judge ordered his disarming, which are criminal grounds in revoking a person's gun license. While this developed, operatives of the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group and the National Bureau of Investigation raided a house in a subdivision in Barangay Balibago, Angeles City, Pampanga early Wednesday morning. The house, allegedly owned by the uncle of Senator Robin Padilla, was believed to be a hideout of Senator De La Rosa. Authorities allegedly based their suspicion on reports that Bato may have transferred to a pickup owned by Padilla's uncle after he left the Senate on May 14. Investigators, however, found neither De La Rosa nor the pickup vehicle at their residence. And speaking of Senator Padilla, he is himself facing a criminal complaint from the PNP. The CIDG says it will be referring to the Department of Justice an obstruction of justice complaint against the senator and several others for allegedly helping De La Rosa escape. PNP CIDG Chief Police Major General Robert Morico said the agency's investigation showed that De La Rosa was not merely given a ride in Padilla's vehicle on May 14. That's only several hours after the shooting incident at the Senate on May 13. Instead, the CIDG described the incident as a highly coordinated and pre-planned escape maneuver so Senator Bato can avoid detection and escape the Senate premises. The CIDG also revealed that another vehicle allegedly acted as a security escort and backup car for the white SUV owned by Padilla, which De La Rosa boarded during the operation. Robin had earlier admitted that Bato accompanied him when leaving the Senate and that he dropped the latter off in Makati City. Padilla also maintained that he does not know De La Rosa's whereabouts and did not help his fellow Duterte supporter evade authorities since there was no warrant for De La Rosa at the time. And today, Padilla reacted to the CIDG's criminal complaint against him with a verse from the Quran. Padilla thanked Allah for keeping him. Meanwhile, Senator Amy Marcos once again blasted what she deemed is a crackdown on members of the current majority bloc. Amy claims the persecution is related to the pending impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. On top of that, the president's sister alleges that the DOJ and the ombudsman are also building cases against all 13 majority senators. On May 26, the ombudsman announced the looming filing of plunder charges against majority senators Jinggoy Estrada and Joel Villanueva in relation to the flood control scandal. Senator Chis Escudero is also still being investigated for alleged involvement in the same case. Senator Rodante Marcoleta is facing plunder and indirect bribery complaints for supposedly receiving 75 million pesos in cash gifts. Sibling senators Camille and Mark Villar are being accused of market manipulation and insider trading in connection with Villar Land Holdings Corporation.
Pananakot ba to o pang-aapi? Hindi ko na maintindihan. Palibasa, hindi sila nanalo. Palagay ko lahat kami talagang pinupunteriya. As a matter of fact, maraming tumatawag, maraming nagte-text sa amin, taga DOJ, taga OMB, na sinasabi na kaming lahat, yung 13, nagke-case build up na raw. Whether this is true or not, I certainly pray that this persecution, if that is what it will be, will not proceed.
Kapatid mobile journalist Mary Monreyes, we are One News.
The Office of the Ombudsman is expected to file a flood control-related case against Senator Jinggoy Estrada. And for the latest, we now go to our mobile journalist Arles De Los Santos. Arles, may na-file na bang kaso ngayong araw?
Angela at Diego, magandang umaga. Nandito tayo sa Sandigan Bayan at inaabangan natin mula kanina pang alas 8 ng umaga kung maiahahain na nga ba yung reklamong plunder at malversation laban kay Senator Jinggoy Estrada. Pero sa ngayon ay hinihintay pa rin natin kung ano oras nga ito maihahain at nananatiling nakabantay dito. Pero Angela, backgrounder lamang, matatandaan natin itong si Senator Jinggoy Estrada ay unang ang nasangkot sa anomalya ng mga flood control projects ng pamahalaan matapos banggitin ni dating DPWH Bulacan and Assistant District Engineer Bryce Hernandez ang kanyang pangalan na kasama umano sa mga nakatanggap ng 30% na kickback mula sa mga flood control projects ng pamahalaan. Para yan sa nagkakahalaga na 355 million pesos na mga proyekto at ayun nga yung kaso na ito tila dahan-dahan din na binuo ng Office of the Ombudsman matapos ngang irekomenda ng Department of Justice na meron ngang maisasampa na reklamo base na rin sa kanilang investigasyon hindi lamang kay Jinggoy Estrada kundi sa iba pang mga opisyal ng DPWH. Pero nauna naman na pinabulaan ng Estrada ang mga alegasyon na ito sa kanya pero tila hindi lamang siya ang mambabatas na masasampahan nga ng reklamo dito sa Sandigan Bayan.
Well, Arles, sinabi ni Ombudsman Boying Remulla, medyo natagalan daw sila doon sa pagbasa at pag-sign dito sa resolution to file the case against Senator Jinggoy Estrada. At dahil daw meron silang mga kinorek at pinulido pa. Would you know kung ano yung mga detalye na yon?
As of now, Angela, hindi pa natin mako-confirm kung ano nga ba yung mga detalye na yon, pero yung mga nakita natin na mga ire-recommend nga mga charges ay yung plunder, malversation, parang may graft and bribery rin, but we need to confirm, Pero yung pinakareklamo ay hindi pa natin nakikita, Pero sinigurado naman ni Ombudsman Boying Remulla na talagang pinulido nila at sinigurado yung mga detalye ay kumpleto para maging airtight yung mga kaso na kanilang isasampa sa Sandigan Bayan.
Arles, quickly lang before we let you go, usually pagkahain nitong case na to against anybody for that matter, gaano katagal bago naglalabas ng resolution ang Sandigan Bayan with regards to an arrest order?
So far, Diego, bigyan natin ng timeline mula pagka-file. So pagka-file, aasahan natin na iraraffle agad itong case na ito kung anong division man ng Sandigan Bayan ang hahawak nito. Yung resolution, kung magkakaroon na nga ba ng warrant of arrest, we can expect that probably by tomorrow or 3 days period kung hindi man mailalabas agad-agad bukas. And then, possible nga yung warrant of arrest na agad laban kay Senator Jinggoy Estrada. And then, kapag voluntaryo siyang sumuko kagaya ni dating Senador Bong Revilla, sumuko siya sa mga otoridad, and then after noon, the next day, no, humarap siya agad sa Sandigan Bayan and isinagawa yung formal legal processes gaya ng pagsuko ng warrant of arrest at pagkuha ng kanyang mga fingerprints and the likes, pati yung kanyang mugshot, no, and then dire-diretso na yan bago nga dumiretso or manatili doon sa Payatas building kung saan yun yung bagong Quezon City Jail building na pinag-i-stayan ngayon o kung nasaan ang kustodiya ngayon ni Senador Bong Revilla at yung iba pa mga kapwa-akusado niya kaugnay ng flood control scandal ng ating pamahalaan.
All right, thank you for that, mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. The International Criminal Court has set November 30 as the start of former President Rodrigo Duterte's trial. Here's the report.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte was still a no-show at the first status conference of Trial Chamber 3 of the International Criminal Court. This is for the crimes against humanity case filed against the former president stemming from his bloody drug war. Attorney Peter Haynes, who replaced Attorney Nicholas Kaufman, appeared on Duterte's behalf. According to the prosecution, they need until September 30 to complete the disclosure of evidence. After that, they said they would be ready to begin the trial proper on November 30. But Duterte's lawyer said the standard timeline is to begin the trial 3 months after the disclosure of evidence. That means, he said, the trial should start on December 30.
We will be ready for whenever you want it to start, but our anxiety is that that should not be a date which leaves us with perhaps 1 or 2 months after the end of prosecution disclosure.
The Counsel for Victims, meanwhile, agreed that the trial may begin on September 30 or November 30. But they said it would already be too long if the trial is pushed back to 2027. The trial chamber gave the prosecution until August 24 to submit its witness list and reports. The prosecution plans to present 70 witnesses, including 31 insiders. Their evidence list also includes around 197 speeches. But for Judge Joanna Corner of Trial Chamber 3, that numbers appears to be too many, especially if the testimonies would only be repetitive.
197 speeches seems to me, on the face of it, it's probably not the right word, but it seems to me too much. And I think you need to consider fairly carefully whether you need all 197.
That will be narrowed. That we will make careful selections. We don't intend to introduce, I'm sure, all 197 of those.
The prosecution will also use video-linked testimony for witnesses who cannot go to the ICC. The language to be used during the trial was also discussed. The prosecution proposed that the proceedings be broadcast in Tagalog to make it more understandable.
It would be much, much better for the population and the victims and people interested in this case if it could be broadcast in Tagalog. Some of the poorer community, where many of the victims are from, do not have a good command.
But will Duterte need an interpreter?
He won't need interpretation.
For now, Judge Corner has also asked accredited experts to review again the former president's fitness to stand trial. This comes after a new and separate request from the defense on May 25 to have Duterte undergo another medical assessment.
The chamber is obliged to make a separate finding. I rather think we'll wait and see what the reports say before we make such a decision.
In the middle of the status conference, Trial Chamber 3 agreed to set November 30 as the start of the trial proper.
Now, to help us understand the trial timeline and what this means for the families of drug war victims, we are joined by Attorney Nery Colmenares. Attorney, good morning. Thank you for joining us again.
Hi, good morning, Angela, Diego, and to all your viewers.
All right, Attorney, so the ICC has set November 30 as the start of Duterte's trial. How significant is this for the families of drug war victims?
Very significant. In fact, we would have wanted it sooner than November 30, but at least we consider it an important gain for us that the chamber did not allow the request of the defense of President Duterte to have the trial start in 2028 almost, or 19 months later. So for us, that's too long, no? Which is actually, as I've been saying all along, This is actually the reverse because usually the accused who is in prison would like to claim his right to speedy trial. But in this case, President Duterte seems to want to avoid trial. But in the end, we're glad that the chamber allowed November 30 as the start of the trial.
So, Attorney, moving forward, pag nag-start ang trial, what should we expect? What should the public expect in terms of sino po mag-opening? Ano po ang magiging role nyo dito throughout the entire process?
Well, the opening, of course, statement will be by the prosecution. And in our case, maybe we'll try to divide it because Paulina Masida is the legal representative of the victims in the ICC. But because we're also here, we will see if how can we divide it in such a way that we can share time. So that's something that we look forward to, especially since it will be translated to Filipino or Tagalog, so that many of the Filipinos will understand at least the opening statements. That was the order of the chamber, that the opening statements be at least translated to Filipino. So we're happy with that arrangement as of now, and we're glad that it wouldn't reach up to 2028.
Well, of course, sabi nga po dun sa confirmation or sa status conference yesterday, the trial will run on a daily basis until the judicial recess. But baka magbago ito, depende po dun sa magiging panibago or updated na medical record, no, or medical examination ni former President Rodrigo Duterte. Now, for the victims, kasi baka daw po magkaroon ng day off, no, during the trial process na yon. So for the victims po, ano po yung nararamdaman po nila on this part na meron po mga accommodations, no, para kay former President Rodrigo Duterte?
Siyempre, ang masabi dyan ng mga biktima, karapatan naman ni President Duterte na magpa-check up kung ano ang kalagayan niya medically. Pero siyempre, naalala ng mga kaanak ng biktima na yung mga anak nila, yung pinatay na magulang nila, ay hindi man lang binigyan ng ganong pagkakataon. In fact, ang hinihingi lang naman ng mga kaanak ng biktima noon, sana dinalaman lang sa korte, kinasuhan, kung tingin nila may kasalanan. Pero hindi, walang awa nilang timas lang. Pero ayaw naman namin ipagkait yan kay President Duterte.
Right.
So yung 5-day trial, kung sakali, may 1 day na posibleng i-waive ni President Duterte ang presence niya. Anyway, ang sabi ng court, magdi-discuss naman tayo ng administrative matters at yung iba pang mga argumento nyo na hindi naman nakailangan i-discuss sa trial proper. So, sana naman hindi ganun ka-delay ang epekto nito sa trial. No? But yung, okay na siguro yung 1 day na waive siya. Dapat naman, kung akusado ka, interesado ka, kung ano ang ebidensyang pinrising kalaban sa'yo at anong ebidensyang ilalaban mo doon. So sana naman hindi mag-wave si President Duterte ng presence niya kasi allowed na nga siyang 1 day at sana naman hindi na madelay pa ang trial. So more or less medyo okay na rin yan, although sabi ko nga mabuti pa si President Duterte at si General Bato de la Rosa. May mga korte silang tatakbuhan at may mga medical experts silang mag-check na hindi na pinagkait naman nila yon sa libo-libong kaanak ng mga biktima ng drug war nila.
Meron po bang pangamba ang mga biktima at this point? Dahil nga po ito, even the new lawyer, no, of the former president is reiterating na the former president is not fit to stand trial at his condition is deteriorating. May incident pa nga po ng mga pagbagsak doon sa kanyang detention. Hindi po ba sila nababahala na baka po talagang hindi nakayanin ng former president na makipag-participate dito sa trial na ito sa November 30?
Una, ang paglilinaw ko lang, hindi ito sa physical o mental capacity kung baga ng isang akusado na maalaala niya kung saan niya nilagay ang susi niya o kaya kung kumain na ba siya kanina. Hindi yun. Hindi rin yung physical na minsan natutumba ka. Maraming senior citizen ang natutumba. At dyan sa Bilibid, marami dyan, mga 80 anyos, lampas pa nga, na nandiyan pa rin sa kulungan. Natutumba rin siguro paminsan-minsan yan. Ang susi sa medical examination is he fit to understand the trial? Maintindihan niya ba ang trial? Abogado naman siya, maintindihan niya yon. Maintindihan niya ba yung mga ebidensyang pinirisinta na kaya niyang instruksyonan o kaya niyang pakinggan ang kanyang abogado hinggil doon sa depensa niya. So, ang pagtumba-tumba, lalo na may medical findings ang experts dati na medyo hindi siya ganun ka forthright o hindi siya ganun ka nagsasabi ng totoo dun sa medical condition niya. At nagsabi naman ang medical expert, 2 beses na yan, na sinabi na fit siya for trial. Bagamat syempre lahat naman ng akusado na matanda na, talagang may malilimutan ka. Talagang may unstable na yung ano mo, kahit nga ako, sabi ko nga sa'yo, Angela, minsan nga natutumba rin. Pero it doesn't mean hindi ako fit for trial, di ba? So anyway, we hope that the medical experts will find na healthy si President Duterte. At kami naman sa mga kaanak ng biktima, we hope him well. Ayaw namin na may mangyari sa kanya o may malala siyang sakit na hindi na matutuloy ang trial. So for us, the medical conditions of President Duterte is so far fit siya for trial, and we're expecting na sa next independent panel of experts na desisyon, fit for trial pa rin siya at matuloy na ang isa sa pinakahihintay ng mga kaanak ng biktima na magkaroon ng trial o aninag man lang ng hustisya para sa mga pinatay o pinaslang na mga kaanak nila.
Attorney, yung the court, no, they flagged the number of speeches daw in the evidence list, no. How significant na may i-present lahat ng speeches ni President Duterte, or is it enough na, or do we expect the prosecution na bawasan ito basta ma-establish lang yung rhetoric ni President Duterte?
I expect the prosecution to cut it down. Sige na. Anyway, ang ipoprove lang naman ng ebidensya yon ng mga speeches ay alam niya ang killing, siya ang nag-utos noon. At hindi yun biro. Hindi yun biro. So, anyway, pwede namang i-cut yun just to prove the point na alam niya. In fact, yun ang problema ni President Duterte. Kahit nga less than yung speeches dyan, pag trial na, mahirapan na siya mag-present ng isang witness na magsasabi na wala siyang alam doon sa drug war, wala siyang kinalaman. Kasi klarong-klaro yun sa maraming Pilipino. In fact, lahat ng Pilipino, klarong-klaro na inutos niya yun. Kahit yung mga Duterte supporters, naniniwala na inutos niya yun, kaya nga siya binoto eh. Kasi pinangako niya yun ng kampanya eh. Napatayin ko lahat ng adik eh. So, I don't think anybody will testify na hindi totoo yung mga speeches na yon, splice lang yon, gawa-gawa lang yon. Sa totoo, hindi niya inutos yon. I don't think that will be the line of defense na effective dito. Although, nabanggit na niya ng confirmation of charges na hindi totoong inutos niya yon at ang pagpatay na yon ay gawa ng mga pulis lang. So parang nilaglag niya ang mga kapulisan niya, including Senator Bato ha. Parang nilaglag niya si Senator Bato doon kasi parang ang sabi niya, wala akong utos eh. Kung gumawa man sila noon, sila yun. O di patay nga hindi Senator Bato dyan kasi siya ang Chief PNP noon. So kung sino pa ba ang pwedeng mag-utos sa pulis kung yung Chief PNP. So, but I doubt if he will be able to convince the court na walang utos yun, yung libo-libong patayan sa buong bansa, gawa-gawa lang yun ng mga individual na pulis at hindi yan galing sa presidente mismo.
Alright, Attorney, lastly, there will be 2 more status conferences, one in June and one in July. And there will be more talks about the evidence and the witnesses that they will present for the trial. I was wondering po, aside from the witnesses and insiders, meron din po ba kami dapat ma-expect na known personalities na magte-testify against the former president? Let's say, Senator Trillanes or Representative Laila de Lima?
Hindi natin alam yan sa ngayon talaga. No? Kasi very strict ang ICC sa confidentiality. At kahit kami na mga counsel ng victims, we're bound by that confidentiality rule ng ICC. Pero posible na magkaroon ng ganyan. Of course, we don't know. Kaya lang, hindi natin talaga ma-predict yan. In fact, ang sabi ng prosecution, ng chamber, dapat isubmit na yung list ng depensa ng prosecution at depensa sa isang schedule, no, August 30, if I'm not mistaken. Ano na yun? Yun na yung list nyo. Ngayon, kung gusto nyo pang dagdag later on, paalam kayo sa korte. So, hindi natin alam kung magdadagdag pa. Pero yung mga deadlines ng Senate ng korte, deadlines yun. Yun naman ang kinaiba sa kanila. Normally, susundin ng ICC ang deadlines niya. Yung confidentiality po protection na niya, hindi dapat malaman kung sino ang mga witnesses dyan o biktima dyan. And lastly, magbibigay sila ng protection sa mga biktima at mga witnesses na kailangan sa trial. So, we'll see we'll see what the list of witnesses will be and whether or not there will be big personalities in the list of witnesses.
Alright, maraming salamat po muli sa inyong oras, Attorney Nery Colmenares. Good morning.
Maraming salamat din po. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Makabayan lawmakers back the Senate minority's walkout and oppose proposals to permit online participation in the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza has the report.
ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino and Kabataan Party List Representative Rene Co showed their support on the Senate minority members' walkout, which happened during the upper chamber session last Tuesday, May 26. This occurred as the Senate majority pushed for an online participation among members who are physically absent, particularly on Senator Bato de la Rosa's part. But for now, House Prosecution spokesperson Co, this should not be the case, especially as Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial is a very serious matter.
Kung magkakaroon man ng pagbabago sa modes of engagement, kailangan may amendments doon sa rules on impeachment. Pero sa atin na mga hawakan natin, you need to be physically present to appreciate the evidence. You need to be physically present to appreciate hindi lang yung direct answer to questions, pero even yung nonverbal language, yung kanyang gestures na sa puno dulo, bubuo ng mas complete picture sa senator judges.
Further, Co wants all senator judges to be participative and proceed with the process forthwith. No delay should happen in the light of the Vice's impeachment case.
Mga student councils, inaasahan natin present sa lahat ng mga meetings on ground. Bakit po hindi natin na-apply yung same standard na yun sa ating mga senador? Nakalagay po sa aming House rules ay kailangan po ng circumstances bago pwedeng ma-invoke na pwedeng may video conferencing or even online voting. Kailangan ang circumstances maging extremely difficult or impossible, like occasions of natural calamities, pandemics, etc. Ang magiging pero hindi po nakalagay dito na kapag hindi nire-respondan yung warrants of arrest, for example.
As for Tino, there should not be any rush for the Senate majority to change what is written on their rules. What matters now is that Senator De La Rosa shall surrender and abide by the law following the warrant of arrest of the International Criminal Court against him.
Pero yun nga, malinaw na unreasonable yung gusto nila kasi yung House, katulad ng nabanggit kanina, ay hindi ina-allow ang virtual sessions and online voting or hybrid, wala at all na hybrid, no? Kaya nga tama ang naging pagtindig ng minority, reasonable na kailangan bago magbago ng anumang rule, kailangan nandun may quorum, tapos reasonable din na tutulan yung gusto nilang mangyari na i-allow ang online voting.
Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Let's now talk to ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino. Good morning, Kong. Thank you for joining us again.
Ay, magandang umaga po sa inyo at sa ating mga tagapakinig.
Okay, so can you reiterate with us why do you believe the proposal allowing online voting or virtual participation in the impeachment proceedings rather should be opposed?
Well, ang pinaka-basic dito ay dapat present ang mga mambabatas sa session at lumalahok in person, no? Whether sa deliberations and especially sa voting. No, yun ang pinaka-basic na tungkulin ng sino mang legislator. Kaya hindi pwedeng sabihin na online na lang yan. Kaya nga sumisweldo ng malaki ang ating mga legislators, more than 300,000 a month ang sweldo po. Ewan ko, itanong natin sa ating mga kababayan kung payag sila na hindi napapasok sa batasan or sa Senado, sa Senate building, physically, online na lang sila sa Zoom. Zoom na lang sila lalahok. Work from home or work from wherever. Tanong natin, payag ba kayo doon? Siyempre hindi, di ba? Yan ang gusto mangyari ng mga senador, at least yung nasa mayorya. Kaya tinututulan natin.
Kong, I'd like to ask your thoughts on the matter, no? Kasi may kumakalat na papeles sa panahon ni, Senator Laila de Lima, nung na-detain siya, and which was, I think, signed by Senator Ping Lacson as well, parang urging na payagan si Senator Laila de Lima pagka-detain na mag-attend ng mga sessions tsaka mga committee hearings, no? And all of a sudden now, they are opposed to allowing a senator daw a virtual meeting or participating the same, no? Ang tanong dito, iba po ba ang appreciation ng isang mambabatas pag impeachment versus a regular plenary or committee hearing?
Well, yung pinag-usapan sa Senado, yung rules nila for their sessions, plenary sessions in the Senate, no? Siyempre, iba pa yung impeachment court. No? It's a separate body, no? Even though mga senators din ang bumubuo nito. So, the Senate Impeachment Court will have to decide on its own rules.
Okay.
No? So magkaiba yun. Pero tingin natin, of course, kung mailusot ng mayorya ang panukala nila to allow for online voting in their plenary, then mas madali na ma-argue nila na pwede ring sundin ito ng impeachment court. So magkakaugnay yun. Kaya again, in both cases, ang basic position natin ay hindi pwede yun.
Yes.
No, kailangan present. Yan ang basic na tungkulin. Kaya kasi nasweldohan ng taong bayan.
Yes.
Kaya kahinalal, kaya kasi nasweldohan ng taong bayan ay para umattend, para mag-participate sa deliberasyon at para bumoto batay dito.
Kung clarify ko lang na before I turn you over to Angel, no? This is purely an internal matter ba? I mean, if let's say hindi nagkasundo talaga ang majority and minority on this issue, do you think the Supreme Court will play a hand or decide on the matter?
This relates to the rules of the Senate.
So internal talaga.
So, internal yan. Ang magpapasya talaga dyan ay mga senador because it's the rules of their own chamber, and the Senate is part of Congress, which is a co-equal branch of government. So they decide their own rules.
Yeah.
I-share ko lang sa publiko na yung House, ang current rules ay para magkaroon ng online voting, kailangan muna maaprubahan na magkaroon ng virtual session, no, ang plenaryo. Pero, and that is allowed. Pero only allowed in exceptional circumstances kapag mayroon talagang natural disaster, calamity, pandemic as before, or merong kaguluhan which will prevent the physical convening of session. So, and then, in such case, pag virtual lang session, katulad nga halimbawa ng nangyari ng pandemic, then allowed ang online voting. But that is the only circumstance.
Right.
Hindi na allowed doon na kapag may warrant of arrest ka,
Yeah.
ay pwede kang counted ka pa rin at pwede kang bumoto.
Parang-
Which let me lead to that. Yun na nga, no, na as a general rule or in principle ay mali. So gusto nila mangyari na gawing parang norm yung online participation in voting. Pero in this particular case, mas lalo pang nakakagalit dahil alam natin ang pangunahing beneficiary ng gusto nila mangyari ay isang internationally wanted na individual for crimes against humanity. No, we're talking about Bato de la Rosa, siya ang berdugo ng Tokhang. No? Kaya nakakagalit dahil bakit ini-extend ang ganitong special treatment o gustong i-extend ang ganitong special treatment para sa isang nagtatago mula sa hustisya.
Kung baka dalawa na.
So far, hindi pa nangyayari yun. No? So, but if ever may iba pang makasuhan, ang naririnig natin, may kakasuhan daw for plunder, edi ganun din. Same applies.
Same
no?
up.
Why is the majority so eager to extend special treatment to their members who are facing very serious charges?
So in
And in
essence,
the case of Senator Bato nga,
Right.
ay fugitive. Parang ganon.
And in essence, Kong, you believe na kaya may mga maneuvering or changing of the rules, or suggestion to change the rules in the Senate is because are they trying to protect VP Sara Duterte in the upcoming impeachment trial?
Well, first of all, they're trying to protect themselves or one of their own. No, so parang ang isang pinapakita dito talagang yung kaya umiiral lang impunity because those in power protect their own, protect each other, no? Nagsimula yan doon sa Blue Ribbon Committee report na ayaw tirmahan ng marami sa kanila, most of them in the majority, kasi nga meron silang kapwa na sangkot. So parang pinapakita sa Senado, accountability is negotiable, no? Depende kung sino ka. So yun yung una. They're trying to protect one of their own from accountability or shield one of their own from accountability. They're trying to protect their majority, no? Kasi pagka for example na-aresto yung isa o dalawa sa kanila, ma-affect na yung numbers at maaaring magbago na naman yung majority dyan, no? At saka yung leadership in the Senate. And third, yes, of course, factor yung impeachment ng Vice Presidente dahil marami sa nasa kasalukuyang mayorya ngayon na nagtutulak ng pagbabago ng rule na ito ay self-declared ng mga pro-Duterte at marami sa kanila nagsabi na rin na tingin nila pamumulitika lang or fishing expedition lang ang impeachment, ang articles of impeachment laban sa Vice President.
Okay.
No? So in other words, meron na silang judgment even though
You haven't seen the
dapat
evidence.
impartial na judges sila o na kailangan muna, sabi mo nga, tignan nyo muna yung ebidensya.
Pero kung kanina nga binabanggit nyo lang yung mga kumbaga dapat na mga reasons no kung bakit inaalaw ang online participation and online voting. Pero kagabi po may post si Senator Robin Padilla saying na ang war, gera, digmaan sa gitnang silangan na nagresulta ng terorismo sa iba't ibang parte ng mundo, ang napipintong pagkadawit ng Pilipinas sa China-Taiwan conflict, hindi ba po ba ito force majeure? Your comment on that?
Talagang grasping at straws or stretching credulity to say na yung gera sa yung US war against Iran or yung as of this moment hypothetical possibility of a war in the Taiwan Strait ay makakapigil or magiging ay valid reason para hindi pumasok physically ang mga senador, no? Yung mga ordinaryong kawani ng gobyerno, bakit sila kaya nilang pumasok?
Yeah.
Wala nga silang mga driver at mga mamahaling SUV para dalhin sila sa to and from work. They manage the 1.8 million government employees are managing just fine, di ba? So talagang again kabalbalan yung argumentong yan.
And of course, going back to the question of Diego kanina, Kong, tungkol dun sa Supreme Court, I understand si Senator Tito Soto said na kung hindi sila talaga magkasundo sa Lunes regarding this issue, baka iakyat nila ito sa Supreme Court. Pero yun nga po, we'll go back to that question, will the Supreme Court decide on this knowing na ito po ay internal rules? And I remember...
Baka mag-overreach.
And I remember there were issues of judicial overreach during the impeachment rules na pinag-uusapan at the time.
Hopefully immediate reaction lang yon dahil nga parang ayaw natin marinig na yung Senado mismo or yung ilang members ng Senate magagaling pa sa kanila na an internal matter will have to be decided by a co-equal branch na dapat walang say, no? And so, dapat hindi mangyari yon. Siguro, unawain na lang natin na dahil sa essentially may possibility of stalemate sa Senate, no, ay may ganung pahayag. Pero really, the rules of the Senate can only be decided upon by the Senate itself. Not by the Supreme Court.
Okay. Nako, Kong, before we let you go, I was wondering lang if you could answer me regarding this. Kasi ang akbayan, formally, ini-endorse po nila or backing up pa Senator Risa Ontiveros for a possible presidential run. Ang makabayan po ba, sino po ba ang napupusuan nilang suportahan sa pagtakbo sa presidente? Is Senator Risa Ontiveros in your line of sight as well?
Well, sa totoo lang, hindi pa po napag-uusapan ng makabayan ang usapin yan. So, truthfully, I cannot, wala pa. Ganun wala pa, hindi pa nag-uusapan. Pero meron tayong mga standing criteria naman. Ang unang-una sa lahat, ay dapat talaga ang kandidato for president will have a platform for people's interest, no, para sa taong bayan. No, at hindi natin nakita yan sa kasalukuyan kay Marcos, kay Duterte, at sino mang mga kandidato na tumitindig na ngayon, kailangan ipakita nila yung kanilang plataforma.
All right.
All right, thank you for your time. ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tinio.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Don't go away. We're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Back to school shopping picks up in Baclaran as parents buy uniforms ahead of the opening of classes. Mobile Journal Ray Vicente is reporting live on the ground. Ray, ano ba? Marami na bang mga namimili dyan? Nagtaasa na ba yung mga school essentials?
Ikaw, Ray, nagsukat ka na ba ng uniform?
Pwede rin siya estudyante.
Pwede rin estudyante si Ray eh.
Yes, so kahit mukhang estudyante, no? Pero kahit mga matatanda, mga kolehiyo, high school, mga preschool naman, Diego, no, at Angela, pasok na pasok pa rin naman yung budget dito dahil hindi naman ganun nagtaas. Nasa 5 piso raw yung tinaas nga ng presyuhan ng mga uniforme dito mula nga sa size 6 para sa girls na blouse, no? Meron yan for all sizes, for high school, college, pati preschool, na nasa 130 pesos. Tapos kada size up, so by 2, no, 5 pesos yung tinataas. Para naman sa palda, nasa 120 naman yung tinaas na presyo. Tapos sa ulo naman, nasa 130 ang size at ang pantalon nasa 150 sa size. Sa usapan naman na sapatos, Angela, Diego, medyo may pagkataasan para sa ating mga kapatid kasi ang walang takong nasa 200 pesos para yan sa mga kababaihan at nasa 280 to 450 pesos naman naglalaro ng presyuhan ng may takong. So dumedepende yan sa inch ng bibilan nila ng takong. Para naman sa mga kalalakihan, nasa 280 pesos yung presyo ng goma, ng sapatos at 550 pesos para naman sa leather. At syempre, para naman sa ating mga kapatid na nais din bumili ng t-shirt at sando, nagalaro sa presyong 120 to 130 pesos. At yun nga, dahil nga ilang tulog na lang, pasukan na, sabi ng mga tindera-tindero rito, talagang kapansin-pansin daw simula nga nung huling linggo nitong Mayo, dumadagsa na raw ng paunti-unti yung mga tao, lalo kahapon, no, Angela, Diego, dahil nga holiday, so simula kahapon pala ng umaga, dagsa na nga rin yung tao. Pero kung makikita nyo nga sa aking doktora, papakita ko lang, sa ngayon, medyo hindi pa naman ganun karami yung tao kasi ang sabi ng mga nagbebenta rito, kahit nga huling linggo na ng Mayo, hapon daw talaga usually pumupunta kasi para hindi mainit, no? Pero inaasahan talaga nila na pagsapit ng June, which is next week, doon talaga mas magdadagsa yung tao. Pero kahit ganun, hindi na raw nila binabalak na magtaas pa nga ng preso, lalo nagmahal nga raw yung mga 5 piso, yung presyuhan ng mga uniforme dito dahil nga sa pagtaas ng presyo ng petrolyo, Angela, Diego.
Ray, well, yung pagtaas ng 5 piso, kung comparative yan sa last year, not bad yun. Pero ang tanong dito, ang importante din, kamusta naman yung presyo ng mga, of course, yung pad paper, notebooks,
Yes.
ballpens. Kasi yan, hindi lang isa o dalawa bibili ng estudyante.
Yes, Angela, Diego, dito naman sa usapang mga school supplies sa Baclaran, no, wala naman nakitang pagtaas ng presyo, pero may mga tayo kanina doon na, wait lang, pakita ko lang, no, quickly. Kasi si Kuya, dahil nga tumumal daw yung bentahan, na kung nawala si Kuya dito, eto, kung makikita nyo, may bulk na mga notebooks, pati pad paper, kasi ang ginawa ni Kuya, parang kumbaga nag-all-in-one na lang, ay buy one, take two na lang siya para talagang meron siyang puhunan dahil kapansin-pansin nga niya, simula nitong Mayo, mas bumaba raw talaga yung, mas tumumal daw talaga yung mga bumibili dito para syempre tumaas din yung kita niya. Ginawa niya, nag-buy one, take two na lang nga siya. Pero sa ibang kagamitan naman dito, same pa rin naman daw, stable pa rin naman yung price, katulad nga sa Divisoria, Angela, Diego.
So kailan, Ray, ini-expect nila yung peak ng tao? Kasi iba-iba ang opening ng mga classes eh.
Yes, Angelo, based sa nakausap natin na 2 tindera dito sa unahan sa Baclaran, ang peak daw talaga first week of June kasi as far as we know, no, Angelo, ang opening ng classes sa public is June 8 or June 9 if we're not mistaken, no. Pero ang sabi, baka may mga ilan sa ating kapatid na mag-buzzer beater na June 7, June 6, bumili pa lalo.
Last
may
minute.
Yes, Angelo, may mga ilang tindahan din daw kasi rito. Kapag mga 2 days before pasukan, saka biglang nagbababa ng presyo. So yun yung mga hinahanap ng mga nanay natin para talagang mas makamura, lalo nga nagtataas na yung presyo ng bilihin pa rin.
Oo. Wala bang nagrereklamo dyan sa'yo, Ray, na mga nagtitinda na apektado sila ng mga online selling platforms, yung mga nagla-live selling, kaya kumpara dati, mas kukonti na yung bumibili ngayon dyan?
Well, Angela, sa usapang uniforme, wala pa tayo naririnig na ganyan. Pero sa usaping mga school supplies. Ito actually, itong tindahan na to, ang nasabi nga ni Kuya kanina na kaya rin siya nag-buy one take two dahil marami siyang makilala na nag-live selling pati nag-online na mas mataas talaga yung kinikita dahil maliban nga sa talaga mas advantage yung kinikita nila, wala rin kasi pwesto yung mga nag-online selling. Eh dito kasi, maliban nga sa pang-araw-araw nila, yung mga katumita dito na binibili nila, eh yung mismong pwesto nila dito sa tindahan, binabayaran din nila. So yun lang isa sa mga konsepto na rinig natin sa school supplies.
Alright, thank you so much, Mobile Journal, Ray Vicente.
The Department of Labor and Employment has identified several safety violations at a construction site in Angeles City, Pampanga that collapsed early Sunday morning. Among the issues flagged was the presence of barracks and alleged accommodation of workers' families inside the construction site, which officials said is a clear violation of occupational safety and health standards. Newly appointed DOLE Secretary Francis Tolentino personally inspected the site and said the establishment of living quarters with an active construction area should have not been allowed. DOLE has launched a separate investigation into possible violations by the project owner and contractor.
Ang pagkukulang dito ay hindi dapat nagkaroon ng tulugan doon sa construction site mismo. Dapat may barracks. Pangalawa, hindi dapat kasama yung pamilya. Ang sinabi sa akin ni Mayor, meron daw ibang report na may kasamang pamilya sa loob. Hindi kasama dapat yon. So, paigtingin natin yung inspection team ng DOLE.
Now in weather, Pag-asa continues to monitor Tropical Storm Jangmi outside Par as it moves north-northwestward east of eastern Visayas. It was last spotted 1,195 kilometers east of eastern Visayas. The trough from the tropical storm is bringing scattered rains and thunderstorms over parts of Mindanao. Southwesterly wind flow is affecting Palawan, Western Visayas, and Mindanao, bringing cloudy skies and rain showers. The rest of the country, including Metro Manila, will have partly cloudy skies with isolated rain showers or thunderstorms.
Severe warning ngayon, nasa heat ha.
Yes.
Naka-receive ako ng prompt from, yung, di ba, magkakaroon ng prompt sa mga, sa phones. Anyway, naalala ko nung 90s, yung mga bata, hindi excited pag back to school, 'di ba? Syempre, summer vacation tapos biglang back to school. Pero ako tuwan-tuwa ako noon.
Bakit?
Kasi pag back to school, may mga notebook na binibenta. Eh nung artista ka noon, 'di ba? Artista ka nung panahon na 'yon.
Oh, nakita ko yung notebook mo, may Diego Castro na notebook.
Yung mga artista kami sa kabilang network kasi meron kaming 2 pesos each. Kita per notebook sold by a specific company. So tuwing may back to school, sabi, may pera tayo ngayon, di ba?
Kasi yung mga notebook mo na yan, mabenta nga.
Hindi mo na ako bumili ng sarili kong notebook. Tapos yung litrato,
gusto ko nga ibenta.
Yung litrato namin sa kalye, 75 cents. With autograph piso.
Puntahan ko si Bostoy, benta ko yung notebook mo.
Wala nang value yun. Baka ibato ni Bostoy yung pabalik sa'yo.
Baka ma-force majeure ako. Joke lang.
Ano?
Go na.
Iba na rin ko.
Ma-force majeure.
Sige. Wait lang. Okay. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow, Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III, kapatid. We are one youth.
All sides, all the time.